Chapter 1: The Awakening. The alarm blared through the corridors of the Galactic Pioneer, jolting Captain Liana Novak from her slumber. She leaped out of her bunk, heart pounding, and raced to the bridge. As she burst through the doors, she found her crew already at their stations, faces tense with anticipation. "Report," Liana barked, sliding into her command chair. "Captain, we've arrived at the binary star system," First Officer Zach Hawkins replied, his eyes fixed on the view screen. "But something's wrong. The stars are emitting massive solar flares, and our sensors are picking up intense gravitational anomalies." Liana's gaze locked onto the twin suns, their fiery dance casting an eerie glow across the bridge. She had trained for years for this moment, but nothing could have prepared her for the sight before her. "Scan the habitable zone," she ordered. "We need to find a place to set down and assess the situation." As the crew worked frantically to analyze the data, a shout from the science station caught Liana's attention. "Captain, I've detected a planet in the habitable zone," Lieutenant Mira Patel exclaimed. "It's showing signs of an oxygen-rich atmosphere and liquid water on the surface." Liana's heart raced with excitement and trepidation. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the chance to explore a new world and make groundbreaking discoveries. But the unstable nature of the binary star system loomed like a specter over their mission. "Set a course for the planet," Liana commanded, "and keep a close eye on those stars. We can't afford to let our guard down." As the Galactic Pioneer descended through the planet's atmosphere, Liana couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover something extraordinary. Little did she know, the greatest challenges of their mission were yet to come. The ship touched down on a vast, rolling plain, the twin suns casting long shadows across the alien landscape. Liana stood at the airlock, her heart pounding with anticipation as she prepared to take her first steps onto this new world. "This is it, everyone," she said, her voice steady despite the nerves coursing through her veins. "We've trained for this. We're ready." With a deep breath, Liana stepped out onto the surface, her boots sinking into the soft alien soil. The air was breathable, the temperature comfortable, but something felt off. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but an uneasiness settled in the pit of her stomach. As the rest of the crew emerged from the ship, they fanned out to explore their surroundings. Dr. Ethan Reeves, the team's lead scientist, knelt to examine a strange, iridescent plant, while Security Officer Nora Voss scanned the horizon for any signs of danger. Suddenly, Mira's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, you need to see this." Liana followed Mira's signal, her unease growing with every step. When she reached the young lieutenant's position, she froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. Before them stood the ruins of a once great city, its towering spires and sprawling boulevards now reduced to crumbling stone and twisted metal. But what caught Liana's attention was the intricate, glowing symbols etched into the ruins, pulsing with an eerie, otherworldly energy. "What is this place?" Liana whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her own heart. As the crew stood in awe of the ancient civilization's remains, they had no idea that they were about to embark on a journey that would test their limits, challenge their beliefs, and ultimately decide the fate of not only their own lives, but the lives of countless others across the galaxy. Chapter 2: The Ancient Ruins. As the crew of the Galactic Pioneer explored the crumbling ruins of the ancient city, an unsettling silence hung in the air. The only sounds were the crunching of their boots on the debris-strewn ground and the occasional crackle of their comm units. Captain Liana Novak led the way, her eyes scanning the glowing symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Dr. Ethan Reeves walked beside her, his brow furrowed in concentration as he tried to decipher the meaning behind the strange markings. "I've never seen anything like this," Ethan murmured, reaching out to trace a finger along one of the symbols. "It's almost as if they're alive." Liana nodded, a chill running down her spine. "Keep your eyes peeled," she warned. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." As they ventured deeper into the ruins, the crew began to notice a pattern in the symbols. They seemed to be guiding them toward the center of the city, where a massive domed structure loomed on the horizon. "That must be some kind of central hub," Mira said, her voice tinged with excitement. "Maybe we'll find some answers there." But as they approached the dome, A sudden tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. The crew stumbled, grabbing onto each other for support as loose rubble rained down around them. "What was that?" Nora shouted, her hand instinctively reaching for her sidearm. Liana's eyes widened as she realized the truth. "It's the stars," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The solar flares and gravitational anomalies, they're destabilizing the planet." A sense of urgency gripped the crew as they raced toward the dome, desperate to find shelter from the impending disaster. As they neared the entrance, the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, pulsing with an almost frantic energy. "They're trying to tell us something," Ethan breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. "We need to get inside." With a final burst of speed, the crew pushed through the entrance and into the dome. As the doors sealed shut behind them, they found themselves in a vast, circular chamber, the walls lined with more of the glowing symbols. In the center of the room stood a towering, crystalline structure, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light. As Liana approached it, she felt a strange pull, as if the crystal were calling out to her. Suddenly, a holographic image flickered to life before them, depicting a scene of unimaginable destruction. Twin suns raged in the sky, their solar flares lashing out to consume everything in their path. Planets crumbled and shattered, their fragments scattering into the void of space. And then a voice spoke, its words echoing through the chamber with an eerie, ancient cadence. "Beware the fury of the twin suns," it said, the holographic image shifting to show a group of figures huddled around the crystal. "Only the power of the Nexus can save you now." As the image faded, Liana turned to her crew, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. "We're not just here to explore," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "We're here to ensure the survival of this planet, and maybe even the galaxy itself." With renewed purpose, the crew of the Galactic Pioneer prepared to unravel the mysteries of the ancient ruins and harness the power of the Nexus. But little did they know, the true test of their strength and resilience was yet to come. Chapter 3. The Nexus. As the crew stood in awe before the shimmering Nexus, Captain Liana Novak stepped forward, her eyes locked on the crystalline structure. She could feel the energy pulsing from its core, a power that both excited and terrified her. "We need to figure out how to harness this," she said, turning to her team. "If the ancient civilization used the Nexus to protect their planet, maybe we can too." Dr. Ethan Reeves nodded, already pulling out his scanner. "I'll see if I can get a reading on its energy signature. Maybe that will give us a clue." As Ethan worked, Mira and Nora began to explore the chamber, their eyes drawn to the intricate symbols that covered the walls. Each one seemed to tell a story, a piece of the puzzle that could help them unravel the secrets of the Nexus. Suddenly, another tremor rocked the chamber, sending debris raining down from the ceiling. The crew stumbled, grabbing onto each other for support as the ground beneath their feet shifted and cracked. "We're running out of time," Liana shouted over the chaos. "Ethan, what have you got?" Ethan looked up from his scanner, his face pale. "The energy readings are off the charts," he said, his voice shaking. "But there's something else. The Nexus. It's not just a power source. It's alive." Liana's eyes widened as she turned back to the crystal, suddenly seeing it in a new light. The pulsing energy, the way it seemed to call out to her, it all made sense now. "We need to communicate with it," she said, her voice filled with determination. "If the Nexus is alive, maybe it can help us." Mira stepped forward, her hand outstretched. "Let me try," she said, her voice soft but confident. "I've always had a way with things that are different." Liana hesitated for a moment before nodding, stepping back to give Mira space. The young woman approached the Nexus, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch its surface. As her fingers brushed against the crystal, a sudden jolt of energy surged through her body. Mira gasped, her eyes rolling back in her head as her mind was flooded with images and sensations. She saw the ancient civilization at the height of its power, the Nexus pulsing with life as it protected the planet from the fury of the twin suns. She felt the fear and desperation of the people as they watched their world crumble around them, the Nexus their only hope for survival. And then she saw something else. A warning, a message from the past that echoed through the ages. The power of the Nexus comes with a price, a voice whispered in her mind. To wield it, you must be willing to sacrifice everything. Mira pulled her hand away from the crystal, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She turned to her crewmates, her eyes wide with a mix of terror and understanding. We can use the Nexus to save the planet, she said, her voice trembling. But it won't be easy. The ancient civilization paid a terrible price for its power, and we may have to do the same. Liana stepped forward, her jaw set with determination. We didn't come this far to turn back now, she said, her voice steady. Whatever the cost, we have to try. As the crew gathered around the Nexus, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew that their journey had only just begun. The secrets of the ancient civilization, the power of the Nexus, and the fate of the planet all rested on their shoulders. And with each passing moment, the twin suns grew more unstable, their fury threatening to consume everything in their path. The race against time had begun, and the crew of the Galactic Pioneer were the only ones who could stop it. Chapter 4. The Price of Power. As the crew stood before the Nexus, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and determination, Captain Liana Novak knew that they had to act fast. The warnings from the ancient civilization echoed in her mind, a stark reminder of the price they might have to pay for harnessing the power of the crystal. All right, team, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. We need to find a way to stabilize the planet's orbit and protect it from the solar flares. Mira, what did the Nexus show you? Mira took a deep breath, her eyes still haunted by the visions she had seen. The ancient civilization used the Nexus to create a protective shield around the planet, she said, her voice trembling slightly. But it required a massive amount of energy, and they had to make sacrifices to maintain it. Dr. Ethan Reeves frowned, his mind already racing with calculations. If we can find a way to channel the energy from the Nexus into the planet's core, we might be able to create a similar shield, he said, his fingers flying over his scanner. But we'll need to be careful. One wrong move, and we could destroy everything. Nora, the crew's engineer, stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with determination. I think I know how we can do it, she said, pulling up a holographic display of the planet's structure. If we can align the Nexus with the planet's magnetic field, we can create a feedback loop that will stabilize the orbit and deflect the solar flares. Liana nodded, her heart swelling with pride at her team's ingenuity. All right, let's get to work, she said, already moving towards the Nexus. Mira, you'll need to communicate with the crystal, guide its energy where we need it. Ethan, keep monitoring the planet's readings. Nora, you'll be in charge of aligning the Nexus. As the crew set to work, the chamber around them began to hum with energy. The Nexus pulsed with a brilliant light, its power surging through the air like a living thing. Mira closed her eyes, her mind reaching out to the crystal, feeling its ancient wisdom and raw energy flowing through her. But as they worked, the warnings from the ancient civilization continued to echo in their minds. The price of power, the sacrifices required to wield it. What would they have to give up to save the planet? Suddenly, a massive tremor rocked the chamber, sending the crew stumbling to the ground. The holographic display flickered and died, and the Nexus began to pulse with an angry red light. What's happening? Liana shouted, struggling to her feet as the ground heaved beneath her. Ethan's face was pale as he checked his scanner, his hands shaking. The solar flares are getting stronger, he said, his voice barely audible over the roar of the tremors. The planet's core is destabilizing. We're running out of time. Mira's eyes snapped open, her face etched with a grim determination. The Nexus is the only thing that can save us, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. But it requires a sacrifice. Liana's heart seized in her chest, her mind reeling with the implications of Mira's words. She looked around at her crew, at the faces of the people she had come to know and love over the course of their mission. Could she ask them to give up everything, to sacrifice themselves for the greater good? But as another tremor rocked the chamber, Liana knew that they had no choice. The fate of the planet, of the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders, and they would do whatever it took to save it. What do we need to do? She asked, her voice steady as she met Mira's gaze. Mira hesitated for a moment before speaking, her words heavy with the weight of what was to come. To wield the power of the Nexus, one of us must merge with it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. We must become one with the crystal, give up our own life force to stabilize the planet and protect it from the solar flares. The crew fell still, each of them grappling with the enormity of what Mira was suggesting. To give up their own life, to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. It was a decision that none of them had ever thought they would have to make. But as the tremors grew stronger and the Nexus pulsed with an ever-increasing intensity, Liana knew that they had no other choice. She stepped forward, her chin held high as she faced her crew. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. "I'm the captain. It's my responsibility to protect my crew and complete our mission, no matter the cost." The others started to protest, their voices rising in a chorus of objections. But Liana silenced them with a raised hand, her eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "This is my choice," she said, her voice ringing out over the chaos. "I won't ask any of you to make this sacrifice, but I need you to promise me that you'll get our ship home, that you'll tell Earth what happened here." The crew fell silent, tears streaming down their faces as they nodded their agreement. Liana turned to Mira, her hand outstretched. "What do I need to do?" she asked, her voice steady. Mira took Liana's hand, guiding her towards the Nexus. "Focus your mind on the crystal," she said, her voice soft but urgent. "Let its energy flow through you, become one with its power, and no matter what happens, don't let go." Liana nodded, her eyes locked on the pulsing crystal before her. She took a deep breath, reaching out with her mind, feeling the ancient power of the Nexus washing over her like a tidal wave. And as the energy surged through her body, as the Nexus began to pulse with a blinding white light, Liana knew that she was making the right choice. She was giving her life so that her crew, the planet, and countless others across the galaxy could live. The price of power, the sacrifice required to wield it. Liana paid it gladly, her final thoughts a prayer for the safety of her crew and the hope that her sacrifice would not be in vain. Chapter 5: Echoes of Sacrifice. As the crew watched in stunned silence, Captain Liana Novak's body began to glow with the same brilliant light as the Nexus. Her eyes, once a deep brown, now shone with an otherworldly luminescence, and her skin seemed to shimmer like the surface of a star. Mira, tears streaming down her face, turned to the others. "It's working," she whispered, her voice hoarse with emotion. "The planet's orbit is stabilizing, and the solar flares are being deflected." But even as they watched in awe, the crew couldn't help but feel a deep sense of loss. Liana, their captain, their leader, and their friend, was gone. Her life force merged with the ancient power of the Nexus. Dr. Ethan Reeves stepped forward, his hand resting on the crystalline surface of the Nexus. "She did it," he said, his voice thick with grief. "She saved us all." Nora nodded, her eyes fixed on the glowing form of their captain. "But at what cost?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. As if in response, the chamber around them began to shift and change. The walls shimmered and dissolved, revealing a vast expanse of stars and swirling nebulae. And in the center of it all, the Nexus pulsed with a steady rhythm, like the beating of a cosmic heart. Mira gasped, her eyes widening in wonder. "It's showing us the galaxy," she breathed, her hand reaching out to touch the shimmering stars. "The Nexus. It's connected to everything." As the crew stood in awe, a soft voice echoed through the chamber, a voice they all recognized as Liana's. "My friends," it said, its tone filled with a deep sense of peace and understanding. "Do not grieve for me. I am not gone, but merely transformed. The Nexus has shown me the true nature of the universe, the interconnectedness of all things." The crew listened, their hearts heavy with a mix of sorrow and wonder. "You must continue our mission," Liana's voice continued, "but not just for the sake of exploration. The galaxy needs you, needs the knowledge and understanding that you will gain. The ancient civilization that once thrived here knew this, and now, so do I." As the voice faded away, the crew looked at each other, their faces etched with a newfound sense of purpose. They knew that Liana's sacrifice had not been in vain, that her legacy would live on through them and their mission. With heavy hearts but determined spirits, they made their way back to the Galactic Pioneer, their ship that now seemed so small compared to the vastness of the cosmos they had witnessed. As they prepared to depart, Mira placed her hand on the Nexus one last time, a silent thank you to the ancient power that had saved them and to the captain who had given everything to protect them. As the ship rose into the alien sky, the crew knew that their journey was far from over. The echoes of Liana's sacrifice would stay with them forever, a constant reminder of the price of power and the unbreakable bonds of friendship and loyalty. And though they faced an uncertain future, they knew that they would face it together, united in their quest for knowledge and their determination to honor the memory of their fallen captain. The galaxy awaited them, and they would meet it head-on, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Galactic Pioneer disappeared into the vast expanse of space, a tiny speck against the backdrop of the twin suns. But within its metal walls, the crew carried the weight of a profound truth, that even in the darkest of times, hope and unity could light the way forward, and that the echoes of sacrifice would forever guide them on their journey to the stars. Chapter 6: Echoes of Discovery. As the Galactic Pioneer ventured further into the uncharted reaches of the binary star system, the crew grappled with the profound impact of Captain Liana Novak's sacrifice. The weight of her absence was palpable, yet her final words and the revelation of the Nexus's cosmic connection had ignited a renewed sense of purpose within each of them. Mira, now the acting captain, gathered the crew in the ship's central command. Her eyes shone with a mix of determination and sorrow as she addressed them. "We have lost our captain, but we cannot let her sacrifice be in vain. We must press on, not only for the sake of our mission, but for the sake of the galaxy itself." The crew nodded solemnly, their faces etched with a shared resolve. Dr. Ethan Reeves stepped forward, his voice steady despite the emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. "Liana entrusted us with a greater purpose, one that goes beyond mere exploration. We must seek out the knowledge and understanding that the ancient civilization left behind, and use it to protect and enlighten the galaxy." As the crew discussed their next steps, the ship's sensors suddenly began to chime, alerting them to an anomaly in a nearby sector. Nora, the ship's navigator, quickly brought up the readings on the main screen. "There's a strange energy signature emanating from a small moon orbiting the second planet in the system," she reported, her brow furrowed in concentration. Mira leaned forward, studying the data intently. Could it be another artifact of the ancient civilization? She wondered aloud. "There's only one way to find out," Ethan replied, a glint of curiosity in his eyes. With a nod of agreement from the crew, Mira set a course for the mysterious moon. As they approached, the Galactic Pioneer's sensors revealed a landscape of jagged peaks and deep chasms, with a peculiar metallic structure jutting out from the surface like a beacon. The crew donned their protective gear and disembarked, their footsteps leaving imprints in the moon's dusty surface. As they approached the structure, they noticed intricate carvings and glowing symbols adorning its walls, reminiscent of those they had encountered on the planet. Mira ran her fingers along the symbols, a sense of familiarity washing over her. "These are similar to the ones we saw in the Nexus chamber," she murmured, her mind racing with possibilities. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, and a hidden door within the structure began to slide open, revealing a passageway that descended deep into the moon's core. The crew exchanged glances, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through them. "We've come this far," Ethan said, his voice filled with determination. "We can't turn back now." With a collective nod, the crew stepped into the passageway, their hearts pounding in anticipation of what lay ahead. As they descended deeper into the moon, the walls around them began to pulse with a soft, ethereal light, guiding their way. At the end of the passageway, they found themselves in a vast chamber, its walls adorned with shimmering crystals and ancient technology that hummed with an unknown energy. In the center of the chamber stood a towering structure, its surface etched with the same symbols they had encountered before. Mira approached the structure, her eyes widening in realization. "This is a repository," she breathed, her voice filled with awe. "A library of the ancient civilization's knowledge and wisdom." As the crew marveled at the discovery, they knew that they had stumbled upon something truly extraordinary. The secrets contained within this repository could hold the key to understanding the universe, to harnessing the power of the Nexus, and to fulfilling the mission that Captain Liana Novak had entrusted to them. But as they prepared to delve into the repository's vast stores of knowledge, a sudden tremor shook the chamber, and a foreboding presence filled the air. Crew realized that they were not alone, and that the ancient civilization's legacy might hold more than just wisdom. It might also hold untold dangers. With steeled resolve and the echoes of Liana's sacrifice guiding them, the crew of the Galactic Pioneer stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that the fate of the galaxy itself hung in the balance. Chapter 7. Echoes of Revelation. The tremor subsided, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. The crew of the Galactic Pioneer stood frozen, their hearts pounding as they scanned the chamber for any signs of danger. Mira, her senses heightened by the adrenaline coursing through her veins, stepped forward cautiously, her eyes fixed on the towering structure that housed the ancient civilization's repository of knowledge. As she approached, the structure began to emanate a soft, pulsing glow, as if responding to her presence. The symbols etched upon its surface shimmered and danced, rearranging themselves into patterns that seemed to beckon her closer. Mira raised her hand, hesitating for a moment before placing her palm against the cool, metallic surface. Instantly, the chamber was flooded with a brilliant light, and Mira felt a surge of energy coursing through her body. Images and sensations flooded her mind, a torrent of knowledge and memories that were not her own. She saw the rise and fall of the ancient civilization, their triumphs and their struggles, and the ultimate price they paid for wielding the power of the Nexus. As the visions faded, Mira stumbled back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The crew rushed to her side, their faces etched with concern. "What happened?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with worry. Mira shook her head, trying to make sense of the fragments of knowledge that now swirled within her mind. "The ancient civilization," she began, her voice trembling with the weight of revelation. "They were not just technologically advanced. They were connected to the Nexus on a level we can't even begin to comprehend." She turned to face the crew, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and trepidation. "The Nexus is not just a power source or a living entity. It's a conduit, a bridge between our universe and something beyond, something greater than we could ever imagine." The crew fell silent, the implications of Mira's words sinking in. Dr. Reeves stepped forward, his brow furrowed in thought. If the ancient civilization was so deeply connected to the Nexus, then why did they ultimately fall? Mira's expression darkened. They became too reliant on its power, too consumed by their own ambitions. They lost sight of the balance, the harmony that the Nexus represents. And in the end, it tore them apart. A heavy silence descended upon the chamber, broken only by the soft hum of the ancient technology that surrounded them. The crew grappled with the realization that the power they sought to harness, the knowledge they hoped to gain, carried with it a terrible burden and a dire warning. Nora, her eyes filled with a newfound determination, broke the silence. "We can't let their mistakes become our own. We have to find a way to use this knowledge to wield the Nexus's power, but with wisdom and restraint." Mira nodded, a sense of purpose settling over her. "Captain Novak sacrificed herself to give us this chance, to entrust us with this responsibility. We can't let her down." As the crew prepared to delve deeper into the repository, to unravel the secrets of the ancient civilization and the true nature of the Nexus, a sudden tremor rocked the chamber once more. The walls began to crack and crumble, and a searing light poured in from above. The crew looked up, their eyes widening in horror as they saw the twin suns, their surfaces roiling with solar flares and gravitational anomalies, looming closer than ever before. The repository's chamber, once a sanctuary of knowledge, now felt like a trap, a tomb waiting to be sealed by the fury of the stars. With a shared glance of determination, the crew of the Galactic Pioneer steeled themselves for the challenges that lay ahead. They knew that they raced against time itself, that the fate of the galaxy and the secrets of the Nexus hung in the balance. And as they stood together, united by the echoes of Captain Novak's sacrifice and the weight of their newfound knowledge, they knew that they would stop at nothing to see their mission through to the end, no matter the cost. Chapter 8. Race Against the Stars. The crew of the Galactic Pioneer scrambled, their hearts pounding in unison as they raced against the fury of the twin suns. The repository chamber shuddered and groaned, the ancient walls straining under the onslaught of solar flares and gravitational anomalies that threatened to tear the moon apart. "We need to get out of here, now," Ethan shouted, his voice barely audible over the deafening roar of the collapsing structure. Mira nodded, her mind racing as she scanned the chamber for an escape route. The knowledge she had gained from the repository swirled within her, a maelstrom of ancient secrets and forgotten technology. And then, like a bolt of lightning, an idea struck her. "The Nexus," she called out, her voice filled with a newfound urgency. "We can use its power to create a shield, to buy us some time." Dr. Reeves, his face etched with a mix of fear and determination, turned to Mira. "But we don't know how to control it, not yet. The risk is one we have to take," Mira interrupted, her eyes blazing with a fierce resolve. "Captain Novak gave her life to protect us, to give us this chance. We can't let her sacrifice be in vain." The crew exchanged glances, their fears and doubts momentarily suspended by the weight of Mira's words. They knew that they stood on the precipice of a great unknown, that the power they sought to wield could just as easily consume them as it could save them. But they also knew that they had no choice. With a nod of assent, the crew sprang into action. Ethan and Nora raced to the Galactic Pioneer, their hands flying over the ship's controls as they prepared for a rapid takeoff. Dr. Reeves and the others gathered what equipment and supplies they could, their movements hurried but precise. And Mira, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration, stepped forward to face the Nexus once more. As she approached the shimmering crystalline structure, Mira could feel the weight of the ancient civilization's knowledge pressing against her mind. She closed her eyes, letting the secrets of the Nexus flow through her, guiding her actions with a wisdom that spanned millennia. With a deep breath, Mira placed her hands upon the Nexus, feeling its power thrumming beneath her fingertips. She focused her thoughts, channeling the energy of the ancient conduit, shaping it to her will. And then, with a brilliant flash of light, a shimmering shield sprang into existence around the Galactic Pioneer and the repository chamber. The solar flares and gravitational anomalies slammed against the barrier, their fury momentarily held at bay by the power of the Nexus. "It worked!" Ethan exclaimed, his voice filled with a mix of relief and awe. But Mira, her brow furrowed in concentration, knew that their respite would be short-lived. The Nexus, for all its power, was not invincible, and the twin suns grew more unstable with each passing moment. "We need to go now," she said, her voice strained with the effort of maintaining the shield. "The Nexus can only hold them back for so long." As the crew boarded the Galactic Pioneer, their faces grim with determination, Mira cast one last glance at the repository chamber. The knowledge contained within its walls, the secrets of the ancient civilization and the true nature of the Nexus, would have to wait. For now, survival was all that mattered. With a roar of its engines, the Galactic Pioneer lifted off, the shimmering shield of the Nexus enveloping the ship as it tore through the crumbling remnants of the moon. The twin suns loomed ever closer, their surfaces roiling with a primal fury that threatened to consume all in their path. But the crew of the Galactic Pioneer, united by the bonds of sacrifice and the pursuit of knowledge, refused to yield. They had come too far, risked too much, to let the echoes of the ancient civilization fade into the void. As the ship hurtled through the stars, racing against the fabric of the universe itself, Mira knew that their journey was far from over. The secrets of the Nexus, the fate of the galaxy, and the legacy of Captain Novak's sacrifice all hung in the balance. And she, along with the rest of the crew, would stop at nothing to see their mission through to the end, no matter the cost. For in the face of the unknown, in the shadow of the twin suns, they had found something worth fighting for, something that echoed across the ages. Hope. Chapter 9. The Nexus Gambit. The Galactic Pioneer tore through the void, the shimmering shield of the Nexus enveloping the ship in a protective embrace. Behind them, the moon crumbled, its ancient secrets and the repository chamber lost to the fury of the twin suns. Mira, her brow glistening with sweat, maintained her focus on the Nexus, channeling its power to keep the shield intact. The knowledge she had gained from the repository swirled within her mind, a kaleidoscope of ancient technology and forgotten wisdom that both exhilarated and terrified her. "The shield is holding," Ethan reported, his fingers flying over the ship's controls. "But the gravitational anomalies are getting stronger. We need to find a way to stabilize the twin suns, or we'll never make it out of this system alive." Dr. Reeves, his face lined with exhaustion and worry, turned to Mira. "The repository mentioned something about the Nexus being able to influence the stars themselves. Is there anything in that knowledge that could help us?" Mira closed her eyes, delving deep into the well of information that now resided within her. Images flashed through her mind, vast arrays of crystalline structures, pulsing with energy, ancient civilizations harnessing the power of the stars, and a warning, echoing across the millennia, of the dangers of wielding such immense power. "There is a way," she said at last, her voice barely above a whisper, "but it's risky. The Nexus can be used to create a resonance field between the twin suns, stabilizing their gravitational fluctuations. But it would require a massive amount of energy, more than the Galactic Pioneer can generate on its own." The crew exchanged glances, the weight of Mira's words hanging heavy in the air. They had already lost so much, pushed themselves to the brink of their limits and beyond. Could they really risk everything on a gambit that might very well consume them all? But then, in the silence that followed, a voice spoke up, the voice of Captain Liana Novak, echoing from the depths of the Nexus itself. "You have the strength within you," she said, her words filled with a quiet conviction that seemed to resonate through the very fabric of the ship. "The Nexus chose you, Mira, just as it chose me. It saw the potential in you, the wisdom and the courage to wield its power for the greater good. Trust in yourself and in the bonds that unite you with your crew. Together, you can achieve the impossible." Mira felt a surge of emotion, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. Captain Novak's sacrifice, her unwavering belief in her crew, had brought them to this moment. And now, with the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance, Mira knew what she had to do. "Ethan, Nora, divert all available power to the shield," she commanded, her voice ringing with a newfound strength. "Dr. Reeves, help me calibrate the Nexus to create the resonance field. We're going to stabilize those suns, and we're going to do it together." The crew sprang into action, their movements fueled by a shared determination that transcended their individual fears and doubts. They worked as one, a well-oiled machine forged in the crucible of adversity and tempered by the bonds of friendship and trust. As the Galactic Pioneer raced toward the twin suns, the Nexus pulsed with an ever-growing intensity, its crystalline structure thrumming with the power of the ancient civilization that had created it. Mira, her mind linked with the ancient conduit, felt the weight of countless generations flowing through her, guiding her actions with a wisdom that spanned the ages. And then, with a blinding flash of light that seemed to engulf the entire system, the Nexus unleashed its power. A shimmering wave of energy erupted from the Galactic Pioneer, enveloping the twin suns in a cascading field of resonance that rippled across the very fabric of space and time. For a moment, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, the chaotic dance of the twin suns frozen in a tableau of cosmic stillness. And then, as if released from an eternal embrace, the stars began to stabilize, their gravitational fluctuations dampening as the resonance field took hold. Mira, her body slumping with exhaustion, felt a smile tug at the corners of her lips. They had done it, against all odds, in the face of unimaginable adversity. They had harnessed the power of the Nexus and brought balance to the twin suns. But even as the crew of the Galactic Pioneer celebrated their triumph, Mira knew that their journey was far from over. The secrets of the ancient civilization, the true potential of the Nexus, and the echoes of Captain Novak's sacrifice still hung in the balance, waiting to be uncovered. And as the ship charted a new course through the stars, Mira felt a renewed sense of purpose stirring within her. They had come so far, risked so much, and now, with the power of the Nexus at their fingertips and the bonds of their crew stronger than ever, they would stop at nothing to unravel the mysteries that lay ahead. For in the face of the unknown, in the shadow of the twin suns, they had found something worth fighting for, a future worth forging. Together. Chapter 10. A New Purpose. As the shimmering resonance field dissipated, the crew of the Galactic Pioneer found themselves in a new reality. The twin suns, once a chaotic and destructive force, now pulsed with a steady, harmonious rhythm. The planets that orbited them, including the one that had borne witness to their struggles and sacrifices, seemed to bask in the newfound stability. Mira, her mind still reeling from the immense power she had channeled through the Nexus, slowly rose to her feet. The bridge of the Galactic Pioneer was a flurry of activity as the crew worked to assess the ship's systems and chart their next course. "The twin suns are stable," Ethan reported, a note of awe in his voice. "Gravitational anomalies have decreased by 95% and the planet's orbits are normalizing." Dr. Reeves, his eyes wide with wonder, turned to Mira. "You did it," he breathed. "You harnessed the power of the Nexus and brought balance to an entire star system." Mira shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "We did it," she corrected. "All of us, together. And Captain Novak." Her voice caught in her throat as she thought of the brave woman who had sacrificed everything to give them this chance. A moment of silence settled over the bridge, each crew member lost in their own thoughts of the captain who had brought them together and inspired them to be more than they ever thought possible. It was Nora who finally broke the silence, her voice filled with a quiet determination. "So, what now?" she asked. "We've stabilized the twin suns, but there's still so much we don't know about the ancient civilization and the Nexus." Mira nodded, her gaze drifting to the view screen where the twin suns hung in the void, their light no longer a harbinger of destruction, but a beacon of hope. "We continue our mission," she said, her words ringing with a newfound clarity. "We use the knowledge we've gained, the power of the Nexus, to unravel the mysteries of this civilization and the greater secrets of the universe." She turned to face her crew, her eyes shining with a fierce resolve. Captain Novak believed in us, in our ability to make a difference. She saw something in each of us, a potential for greatness that we're only now beginning to understand. We owe it to her, to ourselves, to see this through. The crew nodded, their faces mirroring Mira's determination. They had come too far, lost too much, to turn back now. The secrets of the ancient civilization, the true nature of the Nexus, and the echoes of Captain Novak's legacy beckoned to them from the depths of the unknown. "I've detected a series of anomalies on the far side of the system," Ethan reported, his fingers flying over the ship's sensors. "Energy signatures that match those of the Nexus, but on a scale we've never seen before." Dr. Reeves leaned forward, his brow furrowed in thought. "Could it be another repository?" he mused. "Or perhaps something even more profound, a key to unlocking the deeper mysteries of the Nexus and the civilization that created it?" Mira felt a thrill of excitement course through her veins, tempered by a sense of caution born of their recent trials. "There's only one way to find out," she said, settling into the captain's chair with a renewed sense of purpose. "Set a course, Ethan. Let's see what secrets the universe has in store for us." As the Galactic Pioneer surged forward, the light of the twin suns bathing the ship in a warm, hopeful glow, Mira couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and gratitude for the incredible crew that surrounded her. They had faced the unknown, stared down the darkness, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. And now, with the power of the Nexus at their fingertips and the bonds of their friendship forged in the crucible of adversity, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in the pursuit of knowledge, in the quest for understanding, they had found something worth fighting for, a future worth building together. The twin suns receded into the distance as the Galactic Pioneer charted a new course through the stars, the echoes of the past and the promise of the future guiding them onwards to a destiny that would forever change the fate of the galaxy. Chapter 11. The Next Journey. The Galactic Pioneer soared through the void, the light of the twin suns fading behind them as they ventured deeper into the uncharted reaches of the system. The crew, still processing the immense revelations and challenges they had faced, worked diligently to prepare for the next phase of their mission. Mira stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the view screen as the ship navigated through a field of shimmering stellar dust. The anomalies Ethan had detected pulsed like a beacon in the distance, drawing them ever closer to the secrets that awaited them. "The energy signatures are getting stronger," Ethan reported, his fingers dancing across the ship's sensors. Whatever's out there, it's massive. Dr. Reeves, his eyes alight with curiosity, leaned over Ethan's shoulder to study the readings. These patterns are unlike anything we've encountered before, he mused. It's as if the Nexus itself is calling out to us. Mira nodded, a sense of both anticipation and trepidation washing over her. The power of the Nexus, the sacrifices they had made to harness it, still weighed heavily on her mind. We'll need to be cautious, she said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that gnawed at her. We don't know what we're walking into. As the Galactic Pioneer drew closer to the anomalies, the ship began to shudder, the hull resonating with the strange energies that emanated from the far side of the system. Mira gripped the arms of the captain's chair, her knuckles turning white as the vibrations intensified. Shields are holding, Nora reported, her fingers flying over the tactical controls. But the resonance is putting a strain on our systems. Dr. Reeves, his brow furrowed in concentration, studied the data streaming across his screens. The anomalies are exhibiting a pattern, he said, his voice tinged with awe. It's almost like a language, a code we've never seen before. Mira leaned forward, her heart pounding in her chest. Can you decipher it? She asked, the weight of their mission pressing down upon her. Dr. Reeves shook his head, his frustration evident. Not yet, he admitted, but given time, and with the knowledge we've gained from the repository, I believe we can crack this code and unravel the mysteries it holds. As the Galactic Pioneer pressed onward, the vibrations intensifying with each passing moment, Mira found herself thinking of Captain Novak, of the strength and resolve she had shown in the face of overwhelming odds. She knew that the captain's spirit lived on in each of them, driving them forward to seek out the truth, no matter the cost. We'll find a way, Mira said, her voice ringing with determination. We'll honor Captain Novak's legacy and uncover the secrets of the Nexus, of the ancient civilization that left this all behind. The crew nodded, their faces set with the same resolve that burned within Mira. They had come too far to turn back now, had sacrificed too much to let the mysteries of the universe slip through their grasp. And so, as the Galactic Pioneer plunged headlong into the unknown, the crew stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in the pursuit of knowledge, in the quest for understanding, they had found a purpose that transcended the boundaries of space and time. The anomalies grew larger on the view screen, the pulsing energies casting an ethereal glow across the bridge. Mira took a deep breath, steeling herself for the revelations that awaited them. With the power of the Nexus at their fingertips and the bonds of their friendship to guide them, they would unravel the secrets of the ancient civilization and forge a new path through the stars. For the crew of the Galactic Pioneer, the next journey had only just begun, and the echoes of the twin suns would forever shape their destiny in the vast, wondrous expanse of the universe. Chapter 12. Uncharted Territory. The Galactic Pioneer ventured deeper into the uncharted territory, the pulsing anomalies growing ever more intense as they drew closer to the source. The ship shuddered and groaned under the strain of the strange energies, the crew working tirelessly to maintain the vessel's integrity. Mira sat in the captain's chair, her eyes fixed on the view screen as the anomalies danced before them, their patterns becoming more intricate and mesmerizing with each passing moment. She glanced over at Dr. Reeves, who was hunched over his console, his brow furrowed in concentration as he worked to decipher the hidden code within the anomalies. "Any progress, Doctor?" Mira asked, her voice tinged with a mix of hope and apprehension. Dr. Reeves looked up, his eyes alight with a newfound understanding. "I think I'm on to something," he said, his fingers flying across the console as he input a series of complex algorithms. "The patterns, they're not just a language, they're a map." Ethan leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "A map to what, exactly?" Dr. Reeves shook his head, a wry smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "That's the million-credit question, isn't it? But if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say it's leading us to the heart of the ancient civilization's secrets." As the Galactic Pioneer pressed onward, the anomalies began to coalesce, forming a shimmering vortex that seemed to beckon them forward. Mira felt a surge of excitement and trepidation coursing through her veins, the weight of their mission bearing down upon her shoulders. Nora, How are the shields holding up? Mira asked, her gaze fixed on the swirling energies before them. Nora's fingers danced across the tactical console, her brow furrowed in concentration. Shields are at 80%, but the resonance is putting a strain on our systems. We can't take much more of this. Mira nodded, her jaw set with determination. We've come too far to turn back now. Dr. Reeves, can you pinpoint the source of the anomalies? Dr. Reeves studied his readings, his eyes widening with realization. It's coming from a small planetoid on the far side of the vortex. The energy signatures are off the charts. Mira turned to Ethan, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that gnawed at her. Set a course for that planetoid. We need to see this through. As the Galactic Pioneer plunged into the vortex, the ship shook violently, the hull creaking and groaning under the immense pressure. The crew held on tight, their faces etched with a mix of fear and determination as they hurtled toward the unknown. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the turbulence ceased. The view screen cleared, revealing a small, unassuming planetoid floating in the inky blackness of space. Its surface was pockmarked with ancient ruins, the remnants of a civilization long since lost to the ages. Mira felt a shiver run down her spine as she gazed upon the planetoid, the weight of its secrets pressing down upon her. "Prepare a landing party," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to see what's down there." As the crew readied themselves for the descent, Mira found herself thinking of Captain Novak once more, of the sacrifices she had made to bring them to this moment. She knew that whatever lay ahead, whatever challenges they might face, they would do so with the strength and resolve that the captain had instilled in them. For the crew of the Galactic Pioneer, the echoes of the twin suns had led them to this place, to the heart of the ancient civilization's legacy. And as they set foot upon the planetoid's surface, they knew that the secrets they uncovered would forever change the course of their mission, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. Chapter 13. Heart of the Legacy. As the Galactic Pioneer touched down on the surface of the small planetoid, the crew found themselves surrounded by the crumbling ruins of a long-forgotten civilization. The ancient structures stood as silent sentinels, their weathered facades a testament to the passage of time and the secrets they held within. Mira stepped out of the ship, her boots crunching against the dusty ground as she surveyed the scene before her. The air was still and heavy, charged with an energy that seemed to emanate from the very core of the planetoid. She glanced back at her crew, their faces etched with a mix of awe and apprehension as they took in the sight of the ruins. "Dr. Reeves, what can you tell us about this place?" Mira asked, her voice echoing through the empty streets. Dr. Reeves consulted his handheld scanner, his eyes widening as the readings poured in. "The energy signatures are off the charts," he said, his voice trembling with excitement. "And there's something else, a pattern within the ruins themselves. It's almost as if they're guiding us somewhere." Ethan stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm. "I don't like this," he muttered, his eyes darting from one shadowy corner to the next. "It feels like we're being watched." Mira nodded, a chill running down her spine as she felt the weight of unseen eyes upon her. "Stay alert," she said, her voice low and steady. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." As the crew made their way deeper into the ruins, the ancient structures seemed to come alive around them. Glowing sigils pulsed with an otherworldly light, their patterns shifting and changing as the crew drew closer. Mira felt a strange pull, as if the ruins themselves were calling out to her, urging her forward. And then, as they rounded a corner, they found themselves standing before a massive doorway, its surface covered in intricate carvings and pulsing with energy. Dr. Reeves stepped forward, his scanner held aloft as he studied the symbols etched into the stone. "I think I can decipher this," he said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's a warning and an invitation. The ancient civilization, they knew we were coming. They've been waiting for us." Mira felt a surge of excitement and trepidation coursing through her veins as she stepped forward, her hand outstretched towards the doorway. As her fingers brushed against the stone, the carvings began to glow with a brilliant light, the energy pulsing through her body like a heartbeat. And then, with a deep, resounding boom, the doorway swung open, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The crew stepped inside, their eyes widening as they took in the sight before them. In the center of the chamber stood a towering structure, its surface covered in the same pulsing sigils that had guided them through the ruins. And at its base, a single glowing crystal hovered in midair, its facets shimmering with an inner light. Mira approached the crystal, her heart pounding in her chest as she felt the weight of its power wash over her. She knew, in that moment, that this was the heart of the ancient civilization's legacy, the key to unlocking the secrets of the Nexus and the fate of the galaxy itself. But as she reached out to take the crystal, a shadow fell across the chamber, and a deep, menacing voice echoed through the air. "At last you have come," the voice said, its tone cold and calculating. "But you are too late. The power of the Nexus belongs to me, and with it, I shall reshape the galaxy in my image." Mira spun around, her eyes widening as she saw the figure emerging from the shadows. It was a being unlike any she had ever seen, its form shifting and changing like smoke on the wind. And in its hand, it held a weapon that pulsed with the same energy as the crystal, its power a twisted mockery of the Nexus itself. As the crew of the Galactic Pioneer readied themselves for the battle to come, Mira knew that the echoes of the twin suns had led them to this moment, to the heart of the legacy that would decide the fate of the galaxy. And with the strength of her crew beside her, she knew that they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, no matter the cost. Chapter 14. The Nexus Duel. The shadowy figure stepped into the light, revealing a face that seemed to shift and change with each passing moment. Mira felt a wave of fear wash over her as she realized the true nature of the being before her. A shapeshifter, an ancient and powerful race thought to be lost to the annals of history. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," the shapeshifter said, its voice a sinister whisper that echoed through the chamber. "The power of the Nexus is beyond your comprehension, and it shall be mine to command." Mira stood tall, her eyes locked on the shapeshifter as she spoke. "We've come too far to let you steal this power for yourself," she said, her voice steady and determined. "The Nexus belongs to all of us, and we won't let you use it to threaten the galaxy." The shapeshifter laughed, a cold and mirthless sound that sent shivers down Mira's spine. "You are nothing more than insects to me," it said, its form shifting and changing as it spoke. "I have waited centuries for this moment, and I will not be denied my destiny." With a flash of light, the shapeshifter lunged forward, its weapon pulsing with energy as it aimed for Mira's heart. But Mira was ready, her own weapon drawn and firing in a burst of brilliant light. The two beams of energy collided in midair, the force of the impact sending shockwaves through the chamber. Around them, the crew of the Galactic Pioneer sprang into action, their weapons firing as they fought to keep the shapeshifter at bay. Ethan and his security team formed a perimeter around the crystal, their eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. Dr. Reeves and the science team worked frantically to decipher the symbols on the crystal's surface, their minds racing as they sought to unlock its secrets. And all the while, Mira and the shapeshifter danced a deadly dance, their weapons flashing and sparking as they clashed again and again. But even as they fought, Mira could feel the power of the Nexus growing stronger, its energy pulsing through the chamber like a living thing. She knew that they were running out of time, that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. With a final burst of energy, Mira lunged forward, her weapon aimed directly at the shapeshifter's heart. The beam of light pierced through the creature's shifting form, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. And then, with a howl of rage and pain, the shapeshifter fell to the ground, its form dissolving into a cloud of smoke and shadow. Mira stood over it, her chest heaving as she caught her breath, the crystal pulsing with light behind her. "It's over," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "The power of the Nexus is ours to wield, and we will use it to protect the galaxy, not conquer it." As the crew of the Galactic Pioneer gathered around the crystal, their faces etched with a mix of relief and awe, Mira knew that their journey was far from over. The secrets of the ancient civilization still lay waiting to be uncovered, and the echoes of the twin suns would continue to guide them on their path. But for now, they had won a great victory, and the power of the Nexus was theirs to command. And with that power, they would forge a new future for the galaxy, one built on hope, unity, and the unbreakable spirit of the human race. Chapter 15. The Legacy Unfolds. As the shimmering light of the Nexus crystal bathed the chamber in a gentle glow, Mira and the crew of the Galactic Pioneer stood in awe of the power they had secured. The ancient civilization's legacy was now theirs to protect, and with it, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Dr. Reeves and his team worked tirelessly to unravel the secrets of the crystal, their minds racing as they deciphered the intricate symbols etched upon its surface. As they delved deeper into the mysteries of the Nexus, a startling revelation began to take shape. "This is incredible," Dr. Reeves breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. "The Nexus isn't just a power source, it's a conduit, a bridge between our reality and something far greater." Mira stepped closer, her gaze fixed upon the shimmering crystal. "What do you mean, Doctor?" "The ancient civilization didn't just harness the power of the Nexus," Dr. Reeves explained, his voice trembling with excitement. "They used it to tap into the very fabric of the universe itself. This crystal is a gateway to knowledge and understanding beyond our wildest dreams." As the implications of Dr. Reeves had sank in, the crew exchanged glances of awe and trepidation. The power they now held was immense, and the responsibility that came with it weighed heavily upon their shoulders. Mira turned to face her crew, her eyes blazing with determination. "We have been given a great gift," she said, her voice ringing out through the chamber. "But with that gift comes a great responsibility. We must use the power of the Nexus wisely, not for our own gain, but for the betterment of all life in the galaxy." As the crew nodded in agreement, Ethan stepped forward, his face etched with concern. "But what of the ancient civilization?" he asked. "Their power grew too great, and it led to their downfall. How can we be sure that we won't suffer the same fate?" Mira placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, her eyes softening with understanding. "We have something they didn't, Ethan. We have each other. We have the knowledge and wisdom of our own experiences and the strength of our unity. Together, we will find the balance that they could not." With renewed purpose, the crew of the Galactic Pioneer set to work, harnessing the power of the Nexus to repair their ship and chart a new course through the stars. As they worked, they shared stories and laughter, their bonds of friendship and camaraderie growing stronger with each passing moment. And as they finally prepared to depart, Mira stood before the Nexus crystal one last time, her hand resting gently upon its surface. "We will never forget the lessons of the past," she whispered, her voice filled with reverence, "and we will use the power you have given us to create a future worth fighting for." With a final nod of respect, Mira turned and strode towards the Galactic Pioneer, her crew falling into step behind her. As the ship lifted off from the surface of the planetoid, the Nexus crystal pulsed with a gentle light, a silent promise of the wonders and challenges that lay ahead. And as the Galactic Pioneer disappeared into the vast expanse of space, the echoes of the twin suns seemed to whisper a final message of hope and determination. Though the journey ahead would be long and fraught with danger, the crew of the Galactic Pioneer would face it together, united in their quest for knowledge, understanding, and a better tomorrow for all the galaxy.